New videos every day.
You know, it's Valentine's Day 2008. It's about the loving, right? There's a lot of horrible stories of love gone wrong, however, and one it's harder to imagine any worse than the story of Andrea Yates a few years ago in Houston, Texas. The woman who drowned 5 of her young children in their own bathtub. She killed her own children. I mean, is that love gone wrong or what? It's horrific. And afterwards in the newspaper you could read a sentence that actually says, Andrea Yates murders her children because of postpartum depression. That postpartum depression is the cause of multiple homicide, of killing 5 of your own beloved children. The fact that that could be in the press, the fact that people could read that and not just have this reaction of how ridiculous can you be, shows the extent to which the press and the people have been so conditioned into loss of common sense and adherence to false beliefs that anything that happens in life can be attributed to some sort of imagined disease, in this case so-called postpartum depression. You don't kill your children because of postpartum depression. There's a lot of things that most people don't know about that story. Now, it is true that after women have babies, a lot of times they have a hard time. And a lot of times they get pretty depressed and depleted and deficient and despairing. That happens sometimes. That's very sad. But it's not about a biologically based or genetically based mental illness that needs drug treatment. In the case of Andrea Yates, she was subjected to lots of psychiatric treatment prior to that event. And it apparently only made her worse, which is a pretty common story. By that point, she was on at least 2 antidepressants, each of which can derange a consciousness, each of which can create a suicidal or homicidal condition, especially in someone who's severely depleted. Yeah, she would be considered psychotic. But it wasn't because she was postpartum. She may have been depleted and deficient through a string of babies and a lack of support and care over those years. She may have had some of her psychic material activated by all the stress in her life. But the severe derangement that leads to killing children that way, I think, was attributable to medical intoxication. In any event, it's just horrible to think that the way you would respond to a woman and help her is by giving her drugs which are known to have amphetamine-type effects. You've got a woman who's already probably depleted, whose hormones are probably pretty out of balance, who's exhausted, in a lot of distress, and you inject in her system these drugs and the interactions of these drugs. It's not right. And the fact that we don't just immediately see that and challenge that shows how far off so many of us are. I have an email from a woman just a couple of days ago who's talking about so-called postpartum depression and how women do have a hard time there. And a lot of times they really do need help, and that these drugs seem like they're immediately available and so you can help them. That's a great way to get suckered into something. But it may create a crisis and a psychosis, toxic psychosis, like with Andrea Yates. For sure, it's going to cause a further depletion of her system further down the line because those amphetamine effect type drugs called antidepressants kick in adrenaline and cortisol. They alter the hormonal dynamic. They lead to depletion over time. There's nothing restorative and rejuvenative about that dynamic. And there's nothing in terms of loving and support that maybe a woman needs to create safety and support in her life at that time when she's so vulnerable. Rest, support, a man who's around that creates a safe and sacred space for that woman to be in during pregnancy and birth. good nutrition, good care, those things are necessary. And certainly there's certain nutritional and possibly medical supports that can come into play for a woman who's in a deficient condition or a metabolic imbalance problem. Those make sense to think about and look at in terms of bringing support into a woman's life. And as men, thinking about Valentine's Day, any of you men that have pregnant women or women with young babies in your life, your role is to make sure that there's a sacred, safe space available so that that baby's not stressed and that mother's not stressed during the pregnancy and during the period following. And believe me, I know it's hard on us men because we have enough trouble getting our support as well. But that's our role. And as a community, you can support families in that situation and parents in that situation. That's going to make a big difference. And that's a very loving action to take. All right. Thanks.